Welcome to Lethal Dose, your favorite toxicology-focused podcast where we delve into true crime cases involving drugs and poisons. My name is Venus Dinecko. I'm a layperson fascinated by true crime.
My name is Kayla Woods. I'm an author and toxicologist.
Let's get started. Content warning for discussions of domestic violence, child abuse, and suicide in this episode.
Larry McNabney was from Reno and was the kind of person who liked to say, and had the money to say, that you can't put a price on a good time. He and his first wife were high school sweethearts who got married immediately after graduation in 1967 and had a daughter named Kristen. The couple divorced in 1970. Larry graduated from law school in 1974 and began practicing in the public defender's office in Reno. Eventually, he and a colleague opened up their own firm and did quite well in court, but Larry had a tendency to disappear without explanation for days on end, which doesn't make you a good law partner.
I was just going to say, that is not a great quality in a business partner.
Yeah, Larry unfortunately had a drinking problem, and it seems that these disappearances were when he would go on drinking benders and then
makes sense.
Come back and just try to jump right back into things.
Like what? What, was I gone? You were gone, not me.
Yeah, you had things covered, right? So the stress of his partner's unpredictability and inability to get his drinking under control led to Larry's partner leaving the firm. But this didn't slow Larry himself down. Larry got married again and had 2 more kids, Joe and Tavia, and the children remember him fondly for the time he spent in their lives. But the wives and girlfriends don't as much, because he was an addict and was mentally abusive to them. 2 of them said he was physically violent towards them, going so far as to choke one and slam her head against her car, and both women ended up being given restraining orders against him, which are not handed out lightly. After representing defendants in a 13-month-long drug conspiracy trial in 1989, Larry divorced his wife and quit practicing law. Cheryl Tangent met Larry after he got out of rehab for the 3rd time after he quit practicing, and perhaps was Larry's most stable relationship for the 7 years that they were together. They may or may not have joined a cult, depending on who you ask, but they got out safe and enjoyed their time there and the meditative practices that they learned along the way. Getting out and getting back to a normal life for Larry meant practicing law again and drinking again. And this was perhaps not only from the pressure he felt from practicing, but also because of the pressure he was putting on himself to get publicity. Having his name in the papers had always been important to Larry because it meant that people had someone in mind who they would call when they needed representation. And it seems like when Larry first started practicing, you couldn't legally advertise yourself, so this was kind of the only way to get your name out there, was to get that kind of publicity. But after his hiatus around 1991, he hired an advertising manager to make TV ads for his firm, so I guess the law has changed. And these TV ads depicted Larry in a cowboy hat on a horse in the most Dude Ranch, salt-of-the-earth portrayal possible. So he was definitely going for a certain crowd there in Reno.
Sure. Yep.
And the ads worked. Larry started making $300,000 a month and was able to pay cash for his houses and cars. After a year of running these ads, he decided to open a firm in Las Vegas where he figured he could make twice as much money. But he would need help running a bigger office, and so he put an ad in the paper for a receptionist. And this is how he met Elisa Barish, or Elisa Rettelschberger, in 1995. I'm unclear about which name she was going by, and we'll get into why that is.
Okay.
She was born Lauren Renee Sims, and she grew up in Brooksville, Florida. Lauren became pregnant with her daughter Haley while still in high school. She dropped out of school, and she and the father ran away to elope. She then became Lauren Jordan, which was the first name change she took on. But by the time the baby came, just 9 days after Lauren's 19th birthday, the couple had already divorced. At 20, she had another child and another failed marriage. Despite having been a promising young adult before the first baby, the pressures of being a young mother seemed to weigh on Lauren. She started to get into trouble with the law regularly, and it was always for petty crimes like shoplifting. And unfortunately, her first child, Haley, was left to parentify her mother. Her son, Cole, lived with Lauren's parents, and so Haley was the one who had to make dinner. She balanced the checkbook even as a little girl. I mean, she had a very Matilda-like life, I think this little girl did. And so that, did not keep them from losing their apartment and then having to skip town in the middle of the night every 6 months because Lauren couldn't get her shit together and Haley was just a kid. And eventually, Lauren's crimes escalated. She was arrested for trespassing into the home of her current boyfriend's soon-to-be ex-wife's house around Christmas 1991. And I believe the reason was that the boyfriend had given his children presents and something happened with the ex-wife, and Lauren decided it wasn't okay, so she broke in to steal the presents, so...
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this sounds very, there's a story there. There is a story.
Yeah, and in it, Lauren is the motherfucking Grinch. So for this, Lauren was placed on felony probation, which she violated by going to a hockey game that her parole officer was also attending. Lauren knew that she was in it deep, and so she had to skip town again. And she gave 8-year-old Haley the choice to stay with her grandparents, with Lauren's parents, or go on the lam with Lauren. And Haley, of course, as an 8-year-old, chose to stay with her mother. Lauren cut off her ankle monitor, and they went to Texas, because Lauren had cultivated a love for horses as a teenager and wanted to pass that love on to her daughter. She landed herself into more trouble by getting arrested for shoplifting, and when she bonded out, she and Haley ran to Las Vegas. This was in 1993, and Lauren began going by Elisa, which is how she introduced herself to a man there named Ken. And he was led to believe that she was up and coming in business, rather than a woman on the run and sleeping on a pallet with her daughter. The two became close enough that Lauren and Haley moved in with him, and despite finding unusual charges on his credit card and realizing that Lauren was stealing from him, Ken decided to marry Lauren at a drive-thru chapel.
I mean, we all make choices.
We all make choices, and he decided, what are a couple of credit card charges when this lady's really got something?
Yeah, I love her.
And it seems like he did. It seems like he really loved Lauren and he really loved Haley. It seems like he was like...
Yeah, I mean, he moved both of them in, they're, yeah.
Yeah. So, Lauren eventually got that job in the law office in June of 1995. And she was only there about a month before she started telling Haley that the lawyer there wanted to take her out to dinner. So, Larry McNabney knew that Lauren, or Elisa as he knew her, was married, but she told him she was going through a divorce and had a horse that she needed to take care of.
Huh.
Priorities.
Right.
She was exactly who he was looking for in a receptionist, and apparently in a woman as well. So Larry left his longtime girlfriend Cheryl after only knowing Lauren for 2 months.
Wow.
And Lauren started just living the high life with Larry. I mean, he was just rolling in dough being a Las Vegas lawyer. They were traveling by jet, and she was wearing high-end clothes and jewelry. But Haley was still living with Ken. So, yeah. And, as fucked up as that is, that she's, living the high life, and
well, and is she still married, or was she actually getting a divorce?
She's still married, but I'm pretty sure Ken can't not see what's going on.
Okay,
so,
that's why I'm like, does he know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He knew that he was being left behind as, the babysitter. But it was, kind of better that Haley wasn't completely brought into the fold and that Ken was, just left in the dust, because Haley really liked Ken and Ken liked Haley. And Larry did not like Haley. He was always drunk. Ken always made her feel safe and feel like, she was actually his daughter. And Larry called her a bitch.
Oh.
Yeah.
A little girl.
A little girl. She's 10 at this point.
Wow.
But still, Lauren married Larry in 1996 after they'd known each other for 6 months, didn't tell Haley, When she'd gone through the drive-through wedding chapel with Ken, Haley had been in the middle seat. It had been very like, I'm marrying into this family.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't tell Haley this time.
Ugh.
She didn't say anything until she told her that they were both moving into Larry's home in Reno. And then it was very clear by then to Haley that Larry really just wanted Lauren to himself and didn't really want the little girl there at all. Like, he did not want a young daughter. You know, he'd already had kids.
That's
like, he just
really, and that's really fucked up.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you can try to look at Larry's life, on the other hand, people close to Larry felt that Lauren was the one who was attempting to isolate him from his loved ones and was enabling his drinking and drug use, which, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Sure, yeah.
He still called a 10-year-old a bitch, though. So
right, like, he is not a saint by any means. Like,
no.
No.
Is he a guy with problems? Yes. Yes, he is. Whatever drugs he was on made Larry paranoid and violent, and so he and Lauren began fighting a lot. And at one point, Haley heard Larry tell Lauren that he was going to kill Haley in front of her and then tell the police that she did it.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah. Like, run, girl.
Yeah.
You've dipped out before, do it now.
Yeah. Now's the time to do that again.
And I mean, she did. She disappeared for days on end and didn't tell Larry. And according to Haley, some of these flights were Lauren's attempt to leave him completely. But he would track her down and tell them that he would kill both Lauren and Haley and then himself if Lauren didn't agree to come back to living with him.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, I just feel like maybe this is a guy who has seen too much of this type of shit and learned how to get away with it. Like, you know, he's an upstanding guy who's in commercials. He would never do this. It's his word against yours.
Yeah.
And then Haley also said that Larry threatened to use Lauren's outstanding warrants in Florida against her. So he knew a little bit about her backstory, too. And was manipulating her with it. So after one of these instances where Lauren tried to leave and then returned to Larry's house, Larry grabbed Haley by the throat and squeezed. And it was at this point that Lauren began sending Haley away on her own to, like, her grandparents or to wherever she was safer.
I mean, so she's not a complete idiot.
No. Neither Lauren nor Larry were any good for each other, clearly. He had given her a ton of power at his office, which is probably not in either of their, interests. And he gave her access to trusted client files, to his finances, and eventually he changed her job title from receptionist to COO. In this capacity, Lauren was found to have been misappropriating over $74,000 from his clients' trust accounts.
Oof.
Yeah. And he was actually reprimanded by the Nevada Bar Association for this. And Lauren was banned from working for Larry in Nevada. So he had to call it quits in Nevada after this because he wasn't going to give
Yeah,
up.
because Yeah.
And so he closed his office, and then they moved to Sacramento in 1998.
They, as in they went together?
They went together. Yeah. She lost him his business, but they weren't like, oh, you know what? Maybe we're really not good for each other.
Yeah, let's give it another crack, eh?
Yeah, let's move this toxic tornado to California.
Aye.
So Lauren encouraged Larry to spend more time on the road with her and their horses, and they started doing quarter shows and halter competitions. They had the best trainers because they could afford it, and so they performed really well, and they ended up leading the nation in their division around the country with these horses. Wow. And to do these competitions and build a new firm in California, Lauren and Larry needed more help at the Sacramento office. So in early 2000, they put an ad in the newspaper for a receptionist, and they found 21-year-old art student Sarah Dutra. And Sarah and Lauren became fast friends. They started going to restaurants, they would go shopping together, and now 15-year-old Haley really resented the relationship. She was like, you're constantly sending me away, you put me in an unsafe spot.
Situation, yeah.
And now this chick that's only 6 years older than me is your best friend?
Right, like, I mean, honestly, at that point, like, I mean, other than being able to drink, like, the differences between a 15-year-old and a 21-year-old are not significant.
Yeah. Like, they're significant enough.
They're significant enough.
Yeah. Like, 21-year-olds and 15-year-olds don't date each other. Like, you know, that's not
No, they're different.
But, like,
they're different, but, like, as far as, like, a female friend and, like, yeah.
Yeah. No offense to our 15 through 21-year-old listeners, but, like...
No.
Yeah.
No, but if she could have a bestie that was a 21-year-old, she could have a bestie be her daughter, too.
Exactly. Yeah. And Larry also resented this relationship, which of course he did, because now his COO and his wife, COO who is his wife, is best friends with his receptionist, and, like, it's just not looking good for Larry. So eventually he told Lauren that he didn't want Sarah around anymore and that she needed to fire Sarah. But Lauren didn't, because she's her bestie. Instead, she got closer to Sarah, and Lauren would later claim that this was in part because Larry started hitting her. And she would wake up to him choking her because he was constantly hopped up on drugs and intensified the violence towards her.
Oh, wow.
Who's to say, I mean...
Sure.
I won't spoil it, but neither of them are here to tell this, like, their sides of the story, but, like, it wasn't good. Like, it obviously was not good.
Yeah.
So Haley was eventually sent to Maine by her mother to train horses, and Larry disengaged from the business almost entirely, which is weird because I'm pretty sure it was, like, his law office. Like, he was the lawyer.
He's the lawyer, yeah.
Yeah. But he preferred to be with horses or to go golfing or to just drink. And so obviously, like, the law firm was not doing very well. So Lauren was able to take on more responsibility at work without his supervision. She and Sarah were gone so often now that they had to hire another secretary. And this woman's name was Ginger Miller. And her job was to mostly work with Lauren, not Larry, for whatever reason, and to take calls and occasionally work with clients. Ginger also became friends with Sarah, and the three would go out shopping together and hang out. But Ginger thought that the whole, like, Charlie's Angels vibe that the women joked about having was kind of weird. Like, she literally never saw Larry the entire time she worked at the firm. He was just, like, a voice.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
Yeah. Like, she was like, if it's the Larry McNabney law firm, where's Larry McNabney?
Right, like, your name's on the building, but you're never here.
Yeah. So, in September of 2001, Larry and Lauren and their trainer went to the Pacific Quarter Horse Classic in Southern California to compete. Sarah showed up to dinner the night before the competition, much to Larry's displeasure. And he told her to leave, and she said to her boss, "Fuck you, Larry." Yeah. So after dinner, Larry went to his room to sleep off his wine, and that left Lauren and Sarah to themselves. And so Lauren decided to go down to the horse trainer's truck and pull out the medicine bag. Sarah and Lauren filled a Xylazine bottle with horse tranquilizer and then went back up to Larry's room where he was sleeping and dropped 3 drops into his mouth. Lauren then said she began to panic and she stopped, and so she claims that Sarah took the bottle and gave Larry more of the liquid. The next day at the actual competition, Larry was disoriented. He could barely stand or walk, and he looked totally unlike the normally put-together performer that people on the horse circuit had come to recognize him as. Larry didn't know what was wrong with him. Like, he knew he had a problem with drinking, but this did not feel like a hangover. So he skipped dinner and went to bed, after which Lauren and Sarah gave him even more drops of the tranquilizer. Lauren had a difficult time waking Larry up the next morning and thought he was dead. She called Sarah into the room in a panic, but Sarah could tell that he wasn't dead, he was just terribly disoriented and incoherent. And so the two women were concerned that people would notice and be concerned about Larry and possibly try to intervene and get him medical attention. But, as it would happen, absolutely no one was paying them any attention, because that day, while they were dressing Larry, putting him in a wheelchair, and wheeling him out to the truck to drive him away, the rest of the world was glued to their TV screens to try and make sense of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center that morning. Yeah. Everybody was having a little bit of a different experience that morning.
Yeah, there was a different matter at hand that day.
Sarah drove the truck out of town with Larry in the back seat, and both she and Lauren thought that Larry was going to just die in the back of the truck, because that's how poorly he was turning out already. They went to Yosemite and tried to bury Larry's body, but he was still alive, and I guess they...
could we
I'm not dead yet!
Could we not?
Yeah. I guess they, drew the line at burying a man while he was still alive. Let's kill him, but
not like that.
Not like that.
But not like that.
So they returned to Larry's house in Sacramento and left him in the truck overnight. And when they came out in the morning, 53-year-old Larry McNabney had died. Sarah and Lauren removed the wine and the racks from Larry's wine refrigerator in the garage and shoved Larry's body inside. The two women tried to resume to life as normal, but when Sarah went by the house later, she saw that the fridge door had come open and she had to push Larry's corpse back inside by herself. To keep it from opening up again from his body weight, she wrapped the fridge in duct tape. So, not an inconspicuous look.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
People back in Sacramento who cared about Larry eventually did notice that he never came home from the horse competition, and they started to worry. Back at the office, Lauren told Ginger that Larry, who Ginger still had yet to meet, had just suddenly taken off after the last horse show and was going to rehab again, this time at a facility in Oregon. Then she was told that Larry ran away from rehab and joined a different 12-month-long rehab program, and yet there would be times during this period when Larry was supposed to have, he was supposed to be gone. She was trying to buy herself a year, but then Ginger would come into work and Lauren would say, "Oh, you just missed him. He was just here."
Is he in rehab for a year, or did he just dip out of the office? Which one is it?
And
typically, oh, yeah, so I ran away from rehab because I really wanted to go to a longer rehab. That's typically not something people do, but...
Yeah,
okay.
And it's also just weird, I work at the Larry McNabney law firm. He hasn't been representing anyone in a while. Am I going to continue to get paid?
Well, yeah, I would wonder that too at this point. I'd be like, he doesn't have any clients. He doesn't do any type of litigation. Why exactly do I come here every day?
Right. But unfortunately, after all the sudden disappearances Larry had taken before, none of his friends thought it was particularly unusual that he seemed to have just taken off again. That was until 2 weeks passed without hearing from him, because he'd never been gone for that long before. But they kept hearing from Lauren, he's at rehab, he's at a golf tournament, he's in Costa Rica, he's living with another cult. And so, how are they to make heads or tails of the situation? At Lauren and Larry's house, Lauren and Sarah began to throw parties and host dinner parties, all while Lori remained sealed in the duct-taped fridge in the garage.
No.
Yeah. So Lauren told Ginger that she and Larry were separating, which I think you already did there. I think you did. But all the women were going to continue to run the office in his absence, which, how
can you do that?
How do you think this is going to work?
Yeah.
All of you are just receptionists. None of you are even paralegals. So Lauren's I've done it in the past when Larry's taken off. It's going to be fine. Except that when he returned, when Larry finally does get back, Lauren says, it's going to be completely over between the two of us. And so Ginger thought that this whole thing was odd, but things had never, really been what she would consider normal. And so she was kind of, letting it slide a little bit. And then she started to think that things were actually kind of suspicious. She witnessed Lauren and Sarah forging Larry's signature and spending money that she knew the company didn't have. Lauren wrote checks for $1,000 to $3,000 in Ginger's name and had her cash them. And then Lauren and Sarah would spend the money on whatever they wanted. They'd go on vacation, they'd go to horse shows, all non-business shit.
Right.
And at the same time, Larry's kids are very concerned about his extended absence, and they knew that there had to be something wrong. There was no way he was in Costa Rica or golfing or whatever when Lauren told them that he was depressed about his upcoming birthday, because that was not Larry. He was not depressed about, getting older every year or whatever. So the kids assumed that Lauren and Larry had separated, or that things had gotten bad between the two of them and that he left and kind of just abandoned everything. So they're concerned on that level. 2 months after Larry was last seen, Ginger stopped getting paid. She stopped receiving her paychecks. And she told Lauren that she could easily go to the police with all the suspicious activity that she'd seen if she didn't get paid, because a hungry mouth talks. So, there's not any one person in this story that you're like, gold star, except maybe Haley. I feel bad for Haley.
Haley gets a pass. Yeah, Haley gets a pass.
But everybody else, I'm like, you're kind of a bumbler, too. You're kind of, But apparently Ginger's threat wasn't enough to get Lauren to change anything. So on November 30th, Ginger reported to the police that her boss was missing and probably dead, and that she thought the secretary and his wife had something to do with it.
Well, I mean, she's not...
Yeah,
not wrong.
Yeah. When Sarah learned that Larry was reported missing, they removed him from the freezer and put him in the trunk of a car and drove to Vegas to bury him because, Lauren said, Larry loved Las Vegas. So this is going to really honor him to bury him near Vegas.
Oh, that's important now.
But security guards in the parking garage of the Bellagio asked the women to pop their trunk, which Sarah did for whatever reason with Larry in the trunk. She was just like, yeah, sure. But before they could peek inside, Lauren, opens her door and runs around back and slams down the trunk. And she says, "Our mistake. We didn't mean to come to the Bellagio. We were just looking for the Mirage." So...
I mean, did it work?
Yes, yeah. The security guards are just like, yeah, sure. Which, I am not familiar enough with Vegas to know what security guards see, but this was not what they needed their night to be,
Right, right. Right.
So they get away. No one really suspects anything except these bitches be crazy. They check into a different hotel, and then Lauren went out on her own to try to bury Larry in the desert. But what Lauren didn't realize is that it is very difficult to dig into the desert soil, because it's not like dune sand where you can just dig and dig and dig. It's actually very hard beneath that topmost loose surface, so she wasn't able to dig a hole. So she packs his body back into the trunk. They drive back to Sacramento, and Lauren decides to bury Larry by herself somewhere else that she felt honored Larry's spirit. It's very important.
It's very important to her, obviously, that we honor his spirit.
In December, Lauren added what I think is real injury to the situation when she invited all of Larry's family to a surprise birthday party for him, and then called up his son the day before the party was supposed to happen and canceled, and said that Larry suddenly had to go out of town.
Why?
She's trying to make everything seem like it's normal and he's not dead, but that's just so...
But it's like, if everybody thinks you're getting separated, then why would you throw him a fucking surprise birthday party?
I don't...
Not things I'd want to do for my ex-husband.
We don't really talk about people on this show unless they're bumblers, and she's true. A bumbler.
She's bumbling. She be bumbling hard.
So after Larry didn't show up over the holidays, his son Joe also reported him missing. Lauren could only keep up this ruse for so long, and she knew that time is limited. She shut down the firm and collected $500,000 in Larry's assets. Ginger helped Lauren pack since Lauren didn't know it was her friend who had originally put the police on her scent. And the two women made 3 trips out to a storage horse trailer. And while there, Ginger called the cops and told them that Lauren was packing up and trying to skip town, right fucking now.
Mm-hmm.
So the police showed up and tried to intercept Lauren, but she managed to evade them by, going around back. So Lauren and Haley headed to a horse show in Arizona, which Haley thought was super odd because her mom hadn't invited her to come to a horse show in, like, years. Investigators then brought Sarah in for questioning while Lauren was out of town. And Sarah told them that she hadn't seen Larry, but she also hadn't heard from Lauren in a while. She claimed that she knew Lauren went to Arizona and she was supposed to meet her there using a plane ticket that Lauren bought for her, but when she got to the airport, she was told the ticket was on reserve, and when she tried to call Lauren to ask about it, the phone number had been disconnected. So, who knows if that's true or not? Who knows what's going on there? On February 5th, 2002, a day laborer in a vineyard uncovered a partially buried body that turned out to be the corpse of Larry McNabney. Luckily for Larry and the investigators, his body remained mostly intact and well preserved, because he'd been in a fucking fridge for a couple of months. It was obvious that there was no physical trauma to the body or any other signs of a violent death, so it wasn't entirely clear what killed him. When questioned regarding Larry's disappearance, horse trainer Debbie Kale would recall a conversation where Elisa, as she knew her, asked, "Do you think acepromazine could kill someone?" And Kale had told her, "Heck yeah, it can tranquilize a 1,500-pound horse. Imagine what it would do to a human." So investigators took this chemical name back to the forensic pathologist, and the toxicology results came back positive for xylazine, a different horse tranquilizer. Xylazine is a common horse tranquilizer given by injection to produce analgesia and sedation by action on the alpha-2 adrenergic receptors in both horses and other animals. These are the same receptors which are exploited for invoking anesthesia and reducing opioid withdrawal symptoms. Most horses require a dose of 100 to 200 milligrams, and strangely, according to the notes on equine sedatives and calming agents from the University of Minnesota, larger horses are actually more sensitive than smaller horses, and younger horses generally need a larger dose, which is not what you would typically expect.
Yeah, interesting.
Horses might experience GI motility, bradycardia, nasal congestion, decreased thermoregulation, and aggression. However, human toxicity is available now in 2023 because xylazine is an emerging concern as a common adulterant in fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine.
Oh.
It was first discovered in drug tests in 2020, and in July of 2023, the White House released a national response plan specifically to address the mixture of fentanyl and xylazine and its role in overdose deaths.
Oh, wow.
Xylazine was first created by Bayer in 1962 as a clonidine analog for hypertension, but was not granted use for humans because it actually caused hypotension and excessive central nervous system depression. As I said, it found use as a horse tranquilizer and is approved for this use, but it is also used as a street drug, sometimes referred to as tranq, and as an adulterant in other drugs. The effects in humans begin in minutes and can last for 8 hours or longer.
Oof. That is a long time.
That's a long time to feel really disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
Toxicity is induced around 40 milligrams and is presented with sedation, dry mouth, disorientation, hyperreflexia, hyperglycemia, and bradycardia. As a central nervous system depressant, it is, of course, very dangerous to mix with any other depressants, like benzos or, in Larry's case, alcohol, because it can easily lead to coma and respiratory failure. It is recommended that people experiencing xylazine overdose be given naloxone. However, this is because xylazine is often taken in conjunction with opioids, so the naloxone won't actually do anything for the xylazine.
But it's just because there's likely opioids involved with it.
Yeah. There is no antidote for xylazine intoxication, and all measures are supportive. So if they had truly panicked and, gotten Larry somewhere, or if somebody hadn't been watching, the world change on TV and had noticed the guy who was falling out of a wheelchair on his way to a truck, he probably could have gotten attention and been saved, but such was not the case. Sarah Dutra was brought in for another interview. She denied she knew anything about Larry's death, but she did say that the only person she could think who could have killed him was his wife, Elisa.
Sarah, I
Throwing her
thought you were.
friend.
I know. I thought you guys were besties for the
No.
resty.
No,
Come
not when the
on.
toxicology proves that they know a lot.
Yeah.
So she saw that bus coming and she pushed.
Yep.
In Arizona, Lauren learned that Larry's body had been discovered and that the police were looking for her. For the first time in 6 years, Lauren went to Haley and told her it was time to pack up and go, hitting the road like they'd done time and time again as Haley was growing up. The FBI got involved in the search for Lauren, and tips came in from all over saying that Lauren and Haley had gone to Denver, Las Vegas, Florida, but they could not find her anywhere. They didn't have a social security number or driver's license to track her with, and they didn't even know Lauren's legal name.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, the mother-daughter duo drove through the night to Colorado Springs in Lauren's flashy red Jaguar.
Nice. Way to keep a low profile.
Yeah. After 22 hours of driving, Lauren fell asleep at the wheel and the car swerved. Highway patrol noticed and pulled the car over, but the officer let them go with just a warning.
Ugh.
From the Springs, they went to Denver and then to New Orleans. They then went to Mobile, Alabama, and Lauren told Haley that they were trying to go anywhere with a major tourist economy because, as she explained, these were places where it was the easiest to disappear. Eventually, police realized that the woman they were looking for was not Elisa McNabney, but rather Lauren Sims, and that she'd taken on at least 38 different aliases.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She had been Melissa Godwin and Tammy Keelan at some point, and at one point had stolen a fellow inmate's name, Elizabeth, as well as her social security number, and this is how she started identifying herself as Elisa. She had a rap sheet for bad checks, theft, and outstanding warrants that was 113 pages long, going back to 1987.
Holy shit.
Yeah. She's like Joan Cusack's character in The Addams Family.
Addams Family Values, yeah.
Except that she'd only killed Larry up to this point. She wasn't a black widow, but like... At a golf tournament in Biloxi, Mississippi, Lauren met a guy with a timeshare in Destin, Florida, and he offered for her to stay there free of charge. She got a job as a waiter at an upscale steakhouse and began working at a law firm as a secretary soon thereafter. She had no ID and no background check and was still able to get another job at a law firm.
Wow.
She told Haley that this time they both needed to change their names. So Haley became Penelope and Lauren became Shane Ivoroni. In March 2002, the owner of the timeshare condo found out that Lauren had been using his credit cards, and so he called the lawyer's office where she worked and told them that there was something sketchy about her. The firm ran her license plates and discovered that she was wanted for murder back in California. Lauren then went on a date with a guy she had just met. His name was Robert Murphy, and he was newly divorced, and he allowed her to stay the night at his house. She stole the keys from his truck, $600, and took off, leaving him with her bright red Jaguar that was traced back to a murder in California.
Right.
She picked Haley up from a friend's house at 6 or 7 a.m. and told her, "They found us." So Lauren and Haley drove for a day and a half until they reached Charleston, and Haley finally broke and told her mother that she couldn't live like this anymore. They went to a hotel, and Lauren agreed to take her back home, but told Haley that she needed to be prepared for what they were going back to, and so she just came clean about everything. The next morning, Lauren drove Haley back to Destin and then left. Haley went to the police and told them she was worried that Lauren might hurt herself. The truck she stole was found in the parking lot of a Winn-Dixie, and witnesses reported seeing Lauren on the beach. Cops found her just chilling by the ocean and arrested her there.
Good.
And I think she actually said something like, "I was expecting you," or something very cinematic. She was interrogated by the Okaloosa County Sheriffs and willingly confessed to everything, as she had done with Haley. Sarah was brought back in for questioning in California and admitted to helping getting rid of Larry's body, but claimed that she was coerced to do so and was afraid of Lauren. She said that she thought Lauren had only ever been joking about wanting to kill Larry, denied helping to poison him, and said she had nothing to do with storing his body in the fridge. Detectives were not fully convinced, and Sarah was arrested for the murder. Lauren was transferred to the Hernando Correctional Institution in Florida and held without bail for an extradition hearing to face murder charges in California. And on Easter Sunday, 2002, 36-year-old Lauren Sims hanged herself with her bedsheets in her jail cell before she could be moved and tried. Haley was 17 years old when her mother killed herself and was living in Brooksville with her grandparents and brother, who had not seen his mother in 9 years. Sarah's murder trial began on January 6, 2003, nearly a year after she'd been arrested. She maintained that she was terrified of Lauren and was unwilling to participate in the murder. Ginger Miller testified that Sarah herself forged Larry's signature and that after Larry disappeared, she remained best friends with Lauren, so she wasn't afraid of her, according to Ginger. One juror held out on fully convicting Sarah, which would have ended in her receiving the death sentence. Rather, Sarah Dutra was convicted of felony manslaughter and accessory to murder, for which she was sentenced to 11 years in state prison. She served 8 of those years and was paroled in 2011. Haley Jordan got her master's degree in nursing and worked for 8 years as a critical care nurse while raising 2 children. In 2022, she decided to leave nursing and applied for law school and wants to open a center for abused women. She ended her interview with ABC 2020 saying this:
"You never have to stay in a situation if you don't feel safe or in a situation that you question. You have a right to feel safe and you have a right to whatever future you're willing to make."
So, yeah, this is it. This is the last episode of season 6, and
wow.
This is our 50th episode.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's wild. Well, hey, congratulations, Kayla.
Woo, go us. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's been here since the beginning. Thank you to everyone who's just joined. Our Spotify Wrapped just came out, and yeah, this was a good year for us.
I saw that, and to the 9 of you, we are your top podcast.
Hey.
Please say hello to us on social media so that we can give you all of the adoration in the world.
Yeah.
Because that's really cool. And when I saw that, that was like,
I know.
It made my heart melt.
I know, right? Yeah.
It made my heart melt.
Thank you. Thank you all. Yeah, we've made a lot of progress. And also, it said that people really like the serotonin episode, right? But it said that most people started with episode 1, which, yeah, good. Talks 101. But it's also, not our best episode.
No.
We've gotten a lot better since then.
I know. Check out the newer stuff.
Check out the newer stuff, yeah. And then go back and do the Talks 101. Yeah. So, yes, this is, like I said, the last episode of season 6. We will be back with main channel episodes in February. So we're taking a little bit of a longer break over this winter than usual, but we're going to come back with super high quality research. I want to make sure we really bring you the quality you've come to expect from us. In the meantime, we will still be active over on Patreon and Discord, making bonus content. And we want to thank all of our current patrons for their support. So that is Susan,
Catherine,
Bryce,
Josh,
Crumbs and Base,
Michelle,
Jay,
Lula,
Izzy,
Key,
Patrick,
and Joan.
Thank you all
so much.
And don't forget that if you're not a member yet, you can actually do a free 14-day trial at the $2 or $5 level and see the stuff that we offer to our paid supporters, which is microdoses that have video. We do live Discord events. We're actually
Try before you buy.
Yeah, try before you buy. And you can do it before our next live event, which is going to be on the solstice on the 21st. We're going to be doing ghost stories.
Live ghost stories. So check out the Patreon now. This is the time.
Yeah.
The time to do it.
And if, it's also the holiday season, so you can also buy a subscription for yourself or a friend, which, $2 level, that's $24. $5 level, that's $60. Like,
Not a bad gift.
especially not when it's going to be their favorite true crime toxicology podcast. Like,
for the whole year. Think of all of the content they will get and how much they will enjoy it.
Yes. So, thank you all again, and we will see you next year.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, follow, subscribe, and review us everywhere you get your podcasts.
For more Lethal Dose content, you can find us at Lethal Dose Pod on Instagram, Tumblr, and TikTok.
For an overdose of content, subscribe on Patreon for exclusive episodes and much more.
The show theme is Look Far by our dear wizard friend Fogweaver. More of their music can be found on bandcamp.com.
Lethal Dose is created, researched, produced, and edited by Kayla Woods and Bina Steineko. Stay safe, and remember,
the dose makes the poison.